Welcome back to another episode of Around the World. This is episode 19 as we continue to move along this NBA season. We had honestly a pretty busy weekend. I was not expecting it to be super crazy. I had some topics in mind that I was going to talk about, and I actually don't need to really go in depth to them. I will kind of mention what I was originally going to talk about, but yeah, I mean, it was a really solid weekend of basketball. Of course, you had the NBA Cup games on Saturday. We had a couple fun games on Friday, and a very fun game, perhaps the game of the season on Sunday as well. So let's get right on into it. Starting first, as always, with our community question, which simple as this: who do you have winning the NBA Cup final? It is going to be this week in Las Vegas. It is the Bucks against the Thunder in the final. Very close to my original prediction. I predicted Thunder and the Knicks. It was just the only difference was the Knicks went down in the first round. Otherwise, outside of that, I went absolutely perfect in terms of who was going to win. Outside of that Knicks Hawks game, and then of course the Knicks couldn't win the second round, but I went perfect in the West. So I'll give myself a little bit of credit for that, even though it's only predicting like 3 games to be correct. Yeah, I'm gonna take the Thunder in the NBA Cup final. They look extremely dominant. The Bucks have been on an absolute tear, working their way up the Eastern Conference. Only a few games back now, from being all the way up with the Knicks of the world, right, and being that 5 games out of the 1 seed in this Eastern Conference. And I don't think the Bucks are ever going to get to that level of being the 1 seed with the Celtics and Cavs and stuff. But after the slow start we had, I think a lot of people kind of counted them out, and now here they are. After the end of this week, they could be a top 3, top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. So shout out to the Bucks, but I am going to give this one to the Thunder. They look so dominant. They're comfortably atop the Western Conference right now, one of the most stacked conferences we've ever seen, and they've got a 3-game lead. So I don't really know how you see that and can think anything other than how is it not? How is it not them? You know what I mean? So I'm gonna give the credit where it's due to the Thunder, and I'm gonna say them just based on what I've seen. Doesn't mean the Bucks can't win this game. Doesn't mean it's going to be 10 out of 10 like, the Thunder win every single time they play this game, but I am going to take the Thunder. Let's get right on into the weekly notes now, or I guess the weekend notes. We had a couple of trade rumors. We're going to start with the trade rumors and actual trade that had happened over this weekend. The biggest story of all, I think, was the Jimmy Butler one, although that did happen last week, but I do want to talk about that. So it's reported by Shams that Jimmy Butler has told people, or his agent has told people, he's interested, and he's interested in teams like Dallas, Houston, Golden State, and then Phoenix was the biggest one at the very end. Some people have been rumoring that the way he's dyeing his hair is symbolizing the teams that he's considering going to. His agent claps back and basically says it's not true at all. Shams then says, "Oh, I know it's true. Like I know for a 100% fact that it's true." So it's just a crazy little rumor tree there. But I honestly don't know about Jimmy Butler here because the Heat have not looked great. That being said, their record is still perfectly fine, if that makes any sense. The Heat have not looked great. If you watch them play, they do not look like 5 seed in the Eastern Conference right now. They do not look like they're better than the Bucks or Hawks right now, but they are. So trading Jimmy Butler right now, I guess, can make sense in the idea of, we're trying to build for the future, knowing we have a little bit of a core here, and that Jimmy Butler's probably going to leave no matter what happens this offseason, since he wants out. And so let's just trade him right now and get some value out of him. But honestly, they're looking over the course of the next, say, month, they're going to figure out whether or not they can trade him. Because if the Heat are good over the course of the next month, say get to 20-12, 20-13, over the course of the next month, as we get closer and closer to the deadline, it's going to be hard to say, yeah, we got to trade away Jimmy Butler when you're going to be a top 6 seed probably in the Eastern Conference, barring, a run from the Hawks or Pacers towards this middle part of the year. So honestly, I as of now, I'm saying Jimmy Butler should stay, just based on record. The Heat, obviously, I don't think are good enough to be ahead of the Bucks and Hawks, but the record speaks for itself. The record says they're the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. They would they would play the Magic. The Magic would host them, and then they'd move on to the next round where they'd play the Cavs potentially. The Heat could definitely make that run. They definitely could. Would it be the smartest thing? Absolutely not. But let's move on to the one actual trade that did happen, which was Dennis Schroeder to the Warriors. I liked this move. It was for DeAnthony Melton, a few second round picks. I just like it. I mean, the Warriors got DeAnthony Melton in the hopes that he could play for them this year and be their backup guard. Never got it, so why not take a shot on Dennis Schroeder? And I think what they were talking about as well is that potentially Dennis Schroeder isn't the piece they're going for. He is just the guy that they're going to use to move. So they trade away DeAnthony Melton, traded some picks to get Schroeder, to get themselves some more assets to go get a star, which is what they really want to do. And to be honest, the way it's looking out west, they could use it right now, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, I like this move. No matter what they do with it, I am a fan of it. Dennis Schroeder has been phenomenal this year with the Brooklyn Nets. He's had some of his greatest performances in his entire career. He's had probably his best season in his entire career, going all the way back to Hawks days. And whether or not the Warriors move on from him, he's going to be a good value asset to him. He's either going to bring them value on the court, or he's going to bring them value to go get whatever star that they're hoping to get. Maybe it's Jimmy Butler. Don't know how Jimmy Butler fits on this Warriors team outside of the defensive identity. They definitely could use that with how good the defense was early in the year for the Golden State Warriors. But I don't know where they're going to go with Dennis Schroeder at all, but I think it was the right move to make because no matter what happens, I think the trade was a good one. Take advantage of having Curry here while you have him. There's no reason to just sit back and go, yeah, we're just going to be mediocre again and maybe hope for some luck in the draft or, whatever pick falls to us, like a Jared McCain, like a Dalton Connect. Shout out to Jared McCain, by the way. The injury news absolutely sucks for him, and I'm disappointed. It definitely opens up my prediction that I made last week that Stephon Castle can win Rookie of the Year, but it really does suck for Jared McCain. He was having a phenomenal rookie season. I still think he's going to be a great NBA player in the future. Yeah, that's it for the trade news. We'll see as more come along now that we're seeing some trades kind of happen all the way in mid-December versus happening in early January, late January, closer you get to that trade deadline in February. So we'll talk about that every time there is one that's at least of importance. Now let's get into the actual games that happened. Starting with Friday, pretty short day here, honestly. They did have some good games, but overall, just a kind of a meh day, but it gives me a talking point about the Western Conference because, oh my God, is this place just absolutely ridiculous right now. The Wolves stay hot on defense, beating the Lakers. The Lakers at this point were like 2-9 in their last 11 after that loss to the Timberwolves. The Suns then picked up a win and also picked up a win on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, which has boosted them up the Western Conference. And the entire point of this little brief segment is just to talk about the West. I had mentioned it in every episode. Oh, it's kind of chaotic. Oh, it's up and down. Just listen to some of these moves that we've seen throughout the year. Warriors, think all the way back to that first month of the season, right? Think mid-November. We're talking about, oh my God, the Warriors are back. They're going to be a contender. Guess where they are now? 7 seed, 14-11. Same record as the Wolves. The Wolves were under 500 by, I believe, 2 games, I think 2-3 weeks ago. Guess where they are? 8 seed. Half a game back. If they pick up half a game on the Nuggets, Suns, and Warriors, they're the 5 seed in the Western Conference right now. Mavericks, under 500 in the first 2 weeks. They are now 2.5 games clear of the 5 seed. They're the 4 seed. They're only half a game back from the 2 seed. The Rockets, pretty much a team that everybody predicted is either going to be playing or out in this stacked Western Conference. 3 seed. Clippers were the 5 seed earlier this season. If I'm not mistaken, they might have even been the 4 seed. They are 14-12, 9 seed. Tied with the Lakers, who were also top 3 seed in the Western Conference. Kings, I was pretty much calling them out of it a few weeks ago. Guess what? They're only 1 game back from being in the play-in again. They're 2 games back from being the 5 seed in the Western Conference. It's ridiculous. This is one of the most moving conferences we have ever seen, and I think we ever will see. And I don't think it's done yet. It's nowhere near done. And I'm not just talking about the teams between the Nuggets and the Kings that are all within 2 games of each other. I'm talking about the Mavs, the Rockets, and the Grizzlies too. The Rockets are such a young team, a ridiculously young team. They could very well go on a little losing streak, drop down. Teams like the Mavericks, we saw it earlier this year, they're beatable. They're absolutely beatable. They can drop down. The Grizzlies, one of the most injury-prone teams in the NBA. Edey's been out. John Morant has missed time. Desmond Bane has been known to miss time. Jaren Jackson's been known to miss time. If they don't, they're very, very deep. But if they lose a couple players for a week, that gap, that 3-game gap can absolutely dip down to, say, a game. And now you're right back on the fence with those teams. It's just an incredible thing to watch. And I would just say, as a basketball fan, You guys should be watching the conference damn near every day. Just go check it out because it's ridiculous. Night to night, it's absolutely ridiculous. If the Wolves win their next game, in all likelihood, they are going to be the 5 seed in the Western Conference. That's ridiculous. I was making a video, a self-made, like, not even a podcast episode about the Wolves, a self-made video about the Wolves a month ago when they were actually okay, and I noticed their problems. Then I made a TikTok about how they're awful, and they're 2 games below 500, and they're falling down. And in the span of 2 weeks, they've all of a sudden turned into the best defensive team in the NBA, holding teams to under 90 points regularly, holding teams to under 100 points pretty much every single game. It's ridiculous. The conference is going to move so much, and I just highly recommend, even if you don't have your eyes on the games every day, even if all you can do is go check the box scores at the end of the night, which, to be honest, sometimes I do. I can have my eyes on, an 8-game slate on a Monday, right? I can watch 2 of those games, 3 of those games, maybe watch the end of another one. But I can't watch all 8 games, so I have to follow the box score. And when you do that and you just check the standings, it's ridiculous. And it's really, really cool to see. And it makes the regular season much more exciting, especially with the addition of the plan. I always want to give a shout out to the plan whenever I can. That was a phenomenal idea by Adam Silver and the NBA. Let's move on to Saturday. I want to be nice about Vegas here. I really do. But we need to talk about it. Bucks Hawks was a great game, in my opinion. There was definitely some lulls in the game. Obviously, there were some lulls in the game. But overall, I think it was really, really entertaining. Dominant performances on both sides. A relatively close game up until that very, very end. Hawks had leads. Bucks had leads. It was fun. The problem is the crowd in Vegas. That's the problem. Giannis puts up what could potentially be the block of the season, if we're being completely honest. Lob is thrown up. Giannis comes flying across, swats it out of the way, and all we get is a gasp from the crowd. Because, yeah, I'm sure there are Bucks fans in the crowd, but it's not a Milwaukee crowd. They are the 1 seed. If this was a regular playoff game, Game 7, right, a winner go home, this would have been in Milwaukee. And I love that they're playing in Vegas. I love leaning in to the ads about Vegas are awesome. They're amazing. But we need to consider what, maybe going away from it. Because that play should not be something that the crowd just sits there and goes, whoa. I mean, that should be something that's a game-changing play. You could go to 100 NBA games. You're not going to see that type of play. You just won't. You're probably not even going to see, out of all those games, you're probably not going to find a close game most of the time. Or a game that was that close, let alone that has that big of a play in a close game. With that much on the line, to go to the NBA Cup, that the NBA is trying to hype up as this big new thing. This big new in-season tournament, $500K on the line. The players are going to Vegas. We're putting all the best players in ads with the NBA. And that's what the crowd looks like. It's really disappointing. It is. And I don't know how to solve it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a genius and I know how to solve this. But I think we definitely should consider giving tickets to fans of said team that make it. I know it's difficult for people to just say, okay, yeah, no, I can go to Vegas. But I think we need to see more fans of the teams in the crowd. Because I think there's a lot of people who love basketball in Vegas. The tickets were actually relatively affordable. Because it wasn't, the Lakers like they expected. The Knicks like they expected. It was Atlanta and Houston that made it on. Right? It wasn't Steph Curry. It wasn't Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson. So the tickets were affordable. That's great. But if you're not getting fans of the teams, it's hard to make the crowd a fun environment. Other than just watching a game on a cool NBA Cup court in Vegas. Just to say you did it. I'll leave it at there. I'll leave it at that. That's all I'll say on that. I've got more to talk about with the viewership problem. We'll talk about that some other time when we have more of a lull of a week because I've got a lot to talk about with the viewership problem as well. The other game in Vegas, though, Thunder take care of business. A dominant performance from Shea and the Thunder. The Rockets were the 2 seed at the time in the Western Conference, and they just dominated them for most of the game. To be completely honest, they dominated them for most of the game. This is why I picked the Thunder to go on and win the NBA Cup. They don't mess around. They do not mess around. They rarely find themselves in close games. If they do, they're extremely, extremely clutch in those close games. And when they have a lead, they don't let it go. They dominate from start to finish, and they did exactly that on Saturday. All right, let's go ahead and get into Sunday. Starting first, Lakers got a big win, a much needed win. LeBron's back. AD drops 40. Lakers move to 14-12. They also, like I said, half game back all the way, up to the 5 seed. So, got to give them credit where it's due. Happy to see them get out of that slump. The LeBron James story, to me, should have been a bigger deal than it was. He pretty much just disappeared. I don't know if we'll ever hear why and what happened there, but definitely a concerning thing. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference real quick, because the Knicks passed the Magic with a win over them last night. And for the Magic, it's tough. You're kind of going to fall down here over the course of the next few weeks. God, my chair is so loud. You're going to fall down over the course of the next few weeks with no Paulo, with no Franz, but they have put up some really, really competitive efforts against good teams. We saw it against the Bucks. We now see it against the Knicks without their 2 best players. 100%. And those are their 2 best players. It's not even close. They're still putting up really, really great efforts. Mo Wagner had a phenomenal game against the Knicks. They're just keeping themselves in it. And I think that's something that should be admired. They are without their 2 best players, both all-stars, one of them probably all-NBA caliber player this season if he had stayed healthy throughout this season. And yet, I mean, they're gonna pay for it. They're gonna lose, but you got to give them credit for keeping it like this. And they still have a little bit of a cushion to the Heat and the Bucks that are just 1.5 games back to them. If they can stay remotely decent while these guys are out, or at least just while Paulo is out, because Paulo's probably gonna be back sooner than Franz is. Not even probably, should be back sooner than Franz is. This Magic team can definitely stay in it, give themselves a home playoff series, and I think make some noise in the playoffs as well. On to the final thing, potentially the game of the year. Mavs Warriors last night. To all you who didn't have eyes on this game, I feel bad for you. I told my friends midway through the 3rd quarter, I was like, you guys have to turn this game on. Luka's going crazy. It's a high-scoring game, and they were not disappointed either. Just a ridiculous game. A record total number of 3-pointers made by 2 teams. 48 made threes, nearly 150 points on threes alone. The Warriors made 27. The record is 29. Dallas made 21. Absolutely ridiculous stuff. I do think the 3-point record is going to be broken this year. The team 3-point record, which is 29, like I just said. The Celtics almost did it on night 1 of the NBA season, and I think it's definitely going to happen this year. If it doesn't, I honestly will be more shocked than if it does happen. But a phenomenal game. Like I said, Luka went ridiculous. A 40-point triple-double. He had a triple-double with, I think he might have had the 40-point triple-double at the end of the 3rd quarter, if I'm not mistaken, a 41-10-10. Klay, in another game back in the Bay, puts up a phenomenal performance, nearly 30 points. He's loving playing the Golden State Warriors. Klay always has been the type of guy to find anything to get him motivated, and it just so happens to be playing against the Warriors now. We never would have thought that would be what it is, but that is what it is. And a phenomenal game from him. Potentially the game of the year, like I said. The Mavs put up 140 points. I love defense. Defense is really fun to watch. Watching the Wolves has been really fun in the last few weeks. As a Wolves fan, watching their defense be dominant. But man, is it fun every once in a while to just watch an explosive games where teams just can't miss. Watching Luka just dominate. Watching Klay run off screens, pull in people's face, just drilling important 3 after important 3. I think he hit 7 or 8 on the night. It's just fun to watch. It really just is. And it's simple as that. Of course, like I said, I'm not going to be the person. I don't want to see 140 to 140 every game. But man, is it fun when those games happen. I have to be completely honest. And as for the Warriors, we kind of briefly talked about it. They tumbled down the West all the way down to the 7 seed. You could look at it one of 2 ways. They're half a game out of, being the 5 seed again. At the same time, they're also, a game out of dropping all the way down to the 10 seed. So half a game out of dropping all the way to the 10 seed. So you look at it however you look at it, but it's definitely a scary time for the Warriors. The Mavs have definitely pulled away as well. I predicted the Mavs to be the 4 seed this year. My initial predictions were Thunder, Wolves, Nuggets, and then the Mavs. But after the start of the season, I did not believe it was going to happen, and yet here we are, 2 months into the season about now, and the Mavericks are comfortably putting themselves towards the top of the Western Conference, or at least giving themselves a cushion for if, things do fall apart over the course of the next moments or next weeks, right? Luka goes down for a week again, although that genuinely benefited the team. Kyrie goes down, any sort of injury, any sort of problem happens, they've given themselves a cushion if things go wrong. And that does it for a relatively short episode. The weekend episodes are always shorter, just naturally having the one less day of games to talk about. We got the NBA Cup this week. Next time you see me, I believe we'll have an NBA Cup champion. Not I believe, we will have an NBA Cup champion. I'm predicting it to be the Thunder. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. As always, that was our community question, so feel free to drop a comment. If you made it through, I really, really do appreciate it. If you are watching over on YouTube, be sure to check out the podcast over on Spotify. Look up Around the World, look up Warrior Boss 30. You will find it. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to check out the YouTube, Warrior Boss 30, Around the World. Whatever you want to look up, you will find it. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave a review, positive or negative. I want to hear any feedback that I can get from any of you guys. Doesn't matter how positive, how negative, whether you love it, whether you hate it. I just want to hear your feedback if you guys are willing to. As always, if you made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching or listening. And I'll see you guys for, I guess you could call it a milestone episode, with episode 20 coming on Friday.